Hey there, Sam.
Hey, Nathan. What's up?
How's Barcelona? Are you in
Barcelona.
are you in Barcelona?
Is that how that is how they say it, huh? With like a weird lispy
Barcelona.
TH. Barcelona. They also say Ibiza instead of Ibiza,
Ibiza. hmm
which is how it's spelled. But there's no Z in Barcelona.
In
It's
Italian, it would
beautiful.
be Ibiza with like a TZ sound.
Ibiza.
Ibiza,
Hmm.
like
It's beautiful
pizza.
here. I've been very, very lucky, I think, with the weather. Like every other day has been a bit cold and rainy, probably with mid 40s or something, but like no sun and rainy. So it feels a little cold. But then other days, it's been like 65 and partly cloudy with some sun, which is perfect. And
Nice.
that's what I'm looking at today. I'm in my Airbnb right now. And this is my second place. The first place I stayed was in Madrid. For last week, I shot 3 sessions. I was there for 4 days. So it's been a
Okay.
really, really action packed trip.
So yeah, what
And
what brings you over to across the pond, as it were?
yeah, well, aftershoot was kind enough to send me over to a conference here to
Oh,
talk
cool.
about artificial AI editing using their app and just the entire marketplace and idea of artificial intelligence for photographers. And there's a conference here that's really huge. I think there's like 600 people. It's
Whoa.
called BODAF or BODA-F, which is like wedding in Spanish.
Okay.
Boda, I believe, is
Boda.
wedding. That's the deal. So I'm here for that. Tomorrow I'm doing a live shoot, small group thing with a couple and maybe 15 people. It's kind of like a 1 hour workshop, and then my big talk is Wednesday. It's just an hour. There's a bunch of speakers, and then I
Cool.
come back home Thursday, shoot a wedding Saturday. So
All right. Nice.
really
Sounds
fun, really fun.
fun.
Lots of really good food.
Mm.
People generally speak English pretty well, so it's easy to know what I'm eating. I've been a lot more adventurous with food here than I usually am in terms of seafood
That's good to hear.
options. Yeah, I ate some squid. That was weird.
Okay.
And yeah, I figured you'd be proud of me for
Oh yeah.
that.
Very,
and
yeah, very proud of you.
thank you, sir. It's been good, but the jet lag has been brutal. It's a 6 hour time change, and I'm slowly waking up a little earlier every day, but I've been going to bed at like 4 a.m. some nights because I can't sleep. I'll try and go
Sure.
to bed at like 10, but I can't until 4 because that's like 10 o'clock at home.
Right.
Yeah. And so it just screws you. But it's okay. Whenever like middle of the day, like right now, talking to you, is when most of my sessions have started and stuff like that. I've been very awake. I've also, this was like, I'll show you this new camera I've been using.
Ooh, cool.
Uh, this was a good crash course in making sure this would work. So I've tried all kinds of like behind the scenes footage camera for Instagram Reels or Patreon behind the scenes content, whatever.
Like GoPro and stuff.
Yeah, happy with all of them for different reasons, but the battery life on my most recent one, which would let you do post editing 16 by 19 or 16 by 9 or 9 by 16 editing in post, which is super useful to go from something for YouTube versus something for Instagram.
Right.
Awesome camera, but it's really tiny. And so you'd have to remember it would have about maybe 40 minutes of recording time, but that's
Okay.
not enough to just hit record and leave it because
Right.
sessions are usually longer than that. By the second half of it, the battery's totally dead. So
Yep.
I got good at like remembering to hit record and then stopping, but it's just that extra mental friction of having
Yeah.
to
You.
remember, like, oh, this might be a cool photo. Let me turn on my recorder.
Right. Right.
Now let me figure out. It sucks. So
Yeah.
this
That's annoying.
camera, same company, and I've
Okay.
actually owned this for like 2 years. I bought it when it came out, and I actually owned two of them because I accidentally bought
Okay.
two and sold one or gave it away actually to somebody, and just had this sitting around forever, and realized this is the exact same thing. It's a 360 camera, so
Sure.
it's got
I
lenses
thought the
on
other
either
one was
side.
also a 360 camera.
No, it's a like 150-degree or something. So
Oh,
it
okay.
captures a full circle of everything facing in front of it. This
Right.
captures a full entire circle, everything in front of it and behind it, and
Sure.
seamlessly stitches them together. So I thought, I can't really use this because this is too big to mount on anything. But
hmm
what's awesome, I don't have my sling bag close enough, but on my sling bag, it's a really thick, beefy I think that's one of the reasons you like it as well. It's like the think tank bag. It's a really thick, beefy um, shoulder harness, and I can just Velcro it right on that, and it blends in because it's black, and it's hardly noticeable. And I wear it right here in the middle of my chest. And yeah, I lose the entire backside of the 360 view, but I still get the
Sure.
exact same perspective as my other camera that I was using. And this thing has a swappable battery and a 2 hour
Ooh,
straight battery life of recording without having to swap
awesome.
anything. Plus, it's swappable if I needed to real quick.
Cool.
So pretty exciting. I haven't actually done anything with the footage yet, but I've captured 3 sessions worth. So I'm going to play around with that today and try and
It doesn't
get
like
some
get in your
reels made.
way?
And yeah,
It doesn't really
not
like
at
get in
all.
your way when you're shooting?
I'll
Cool.
just show you since we're doing video.
Sure. For all the audio listeners out there, Sam has now left his chair.
Nathan
He's
and I
coming
are
back.
forever since I think we started, right? You and I have been permanently happy-ish, mostly happy in the sling bag, shoulder
Yep.
sling bag world. We do not
Yep.
use special camera straps or any of that crap.
Yeah.
We just carry lenses in our sling bag. Yeah.
This thing has been actually, the zipper on this has been like pretty much broken. Well, the what is this thing?
Your think tank
The
turnstile.
zipper thing for this has been broken on one side, but on the other side it's fine. And I have used this for like at least 5 years, maybe longer. I don't know,
Yeah, man.
6
It's
maybe.
a wonderful bag.
It's
I still prefer it in
great.
terms of feel and function, but I don't like the way it looks on my back.
Right.
This one, which is the Encase kind of equivalent, that's the brand. It works well enough and feels good enough, but looks really good. So it's like the best balance. So what's
That's
interesting, this actually has this really chunky,
good. Oh, look
awesome
at that.
little holster. Isn't that
Okay.
cool?
Yeah.
So I thought that would be perfect. Unfortunately, it's too high. And the first
Yeah.
footage I captured, you see like half of it is just my cheek. It's like
Right.
my
Okay.
gray beard neck hair. It's gross. So I just have like one of those cable organizers. I don't know where that is,
Yeah.
but it's just a black Velcro strap. And
Cool.
instead, it just mounts down here. And it's totally not in the way. And down here, it doesn't capture too much of my face, and it gets everything on the ground in front of me perfectly.
Awesome.
It's awesome.
Does it secure, enough to where it's not going to like fly off and break?
Totally. Yep.
Cool.
Nope. Yeah, it's super tight. And then because it's like a bulbous lens here, if it does inch itself close, it like catches. It's not gonna. I mean, maybe if I turn the bag upside down, it might fly out, but it's pretty. Oh, the other thing that I did was attach a rubber band to the Velcro strap that I'm using, so it's got a nice thick rubbery friction on top of being Velcro attached. So it's all good.
Cool.
Very, very happy. And again, like the battery life, I don't have to worry about it. That's the big thing. The mental friction, like this footage is so helpful for teaching and for self-promotion on Reels. Even if you're just using Reels or TikTok, I suppose, for teaching, it still pulls in new clients who know nothing about photography but like to see the behind the scenes because they're like, oh shit, look what he did with that. It's very good marketing across the board. Everyone should do it. Find a way that it removes as much friction as it possibly can. Ideally, you could get away with just wearing like a helmet cam.
Yeah.
That would probably be the best perspective, but you would look like a fool. A fool.
You could put it on the camera itself, but then
this is too big, especially on the R3. That's already such a big camera.
Yeah, that's true.
Way too big. Because you'd have to, it doesn't have a hot shoe mount. You'd have to screw in a hot shoe and then mount it.
No, that's annoying.
It's perfect. It's really comfortable on my strap, truly. So been happy to discover that and play with it. Admittedly, I haven't actually literally edited all the footage from it yet. I've just looked at it and it looks like it'll be fine. You never know for sure until something's, the end product, but it'll be good. And what's great is the studio, the soft. So it's a special video file because it's a 360 capture. It's not like an MP4. It's something else, like a proprietary file, which is kind of annoying, but it's totally necessary because it saves the stabilization metadata within the file itself. It couldn't do that with an MP4 or like an MOV file. So it has a special Insta360 branded studio to bring in the footage, and it actually makes it really easy to create like object tracking. Like you can say, just track this face or just track this whatever, and
Oh
it'll
wow.
slowly pan and scan from the entirety of the front, in my case, the front facing footage only. It'll pan and scan and follow that thing, zooming in automatically, and it's 5K footage, so you can zoom in
Oh wow.
and do that without getting pixelization, unless
That
you
is
really had
super
to
cool.
zoom. Yeah, it's wonderful. So highly recommend this. It's been out for a few years, so I wouldn't be shocked if they create a newer update at some point. This is already the second version of this camera, Insta360 One X2, which is just the stupidest name ever. But
1X.
oh yeah, did you get the new Insta360 One X2? What about the Insta360 One X, 3 Special Pro 2? We're getting into a crazy time. I'm sorry, we're getting into such a crazy time period of naming.
We are
like technology. It's inevitable because you can't just go 1, 2, 3.
You can't.
Because 30 years into the iteration of something, you're like at Apple with their Mac OS version 10. Mac OS X version 10.15, 12.3 is Monterey, whatever. It's so silly. But I do actually like Apple's solution to just pick a place, a location as the name of the OS. That's cool.
Yeah, that's cool.
At least on their marketing materials.
Yeah, but then on their actual computers, it's just bizarre, or at least has been in the past. Like MacBook Air, MacBook Pro, MacBook.
Just the MacBook was the one port. Yeah. Silly.
I don't know.
So how's your life? I just talked for a long time. What have you been up to? It's been about a month since we podcasted. So there's war. We can talk about war. We can talk about
war.
All kinds of stuff.
It's must be a little bit weird being significantly closer to the war that is happening in the world.
I am on the continent that it's occurring. You're right.
You're on the continent. Has there been anything about like refugees coming into Spain at all?
There's a lot of random graffiti and signage. I haven't seen any protests or anything like that. And the general mood and attitude seems not distracted at all by it. Mm-hmm. But it comes up in passing and people are clearly concerned and what have you. But nothing... Walking around without following the news, you would never know that such a crazy, yet another once in a lifetime. How many once in a lifetime events have occurred in our lifetime now?
A lot. We're talking, I mean, I saw a great tweet that was like, recently that was like, oh man, like our parents really, really got like had it good for a while. Like they didn't have to deal with any of the like financial things that we're having to deal with. They sort of had the Vietnam War, so that's fine. That's what that was. But they could buy a house. They could I don't know. They didn't have to deal with like a absurd like pandemic. And I don't know. It's just weird to think of like how much stuff has happened just in the last. Literally 20 years, fine, since 9/11. We could start with 9/11.
I think was, aside from a really insane once in a lifetime ice storm that I grew up in the mid 90s. I think it was like 1993. I don't know if you had that. It was in Virginia and like most of the East Coast. Well, there's like 3 weeks without power.
Well, there's a blizzard of 96. Was that the one, or there was also one in 93? Maybe. There was a couple of blizzards. I think maybe there was 93 and 96, but I know for sure the blizzard of 96 was like, that was the big one. That's the one where when I was a kid, I built like a snow fort in the front of my house, and trucks were coming by. This is like a weekend. Trucks were coming by to start clearing stuff. And me and my friend had the genius idea to start throwing snowballs at the truck drivers that were one big, big snow truck came through, and I threw this snowball, and it was perfect in terms of accuracy. It went in through his open window, right past his face, into the truck. He slammed on the brakes, jumped out, and started running after us. And I was like, oh my God. And me and my friend just ran into the backyard, and I was in so much trouble. I
Oh,
think
did he find your parents or
he
something, or did
talked
you
to my
just tell
mom.
you?
Yeah.
Oh,
Mm,
yeah,
yeah.
that's
And
bad.
I was in trouble for many days.
That's the thing as a kid, when before you drive and before you've got a fully developed brain.
Hmm.
I remember I also similarly got in trouble for, what I thought was fine to throw little acorns under cars passing me at my bus stop. I would just
Sure.
throw these acorns underneath cars and they would hit
Yeah. I
them,
mean, what's
or they wouldn't. And the acorn would like
Nick?
rattle around underneath and the
Right.
car would move on. And I got in super big trouble because people thought they were rocks. And they
Oh.
probably sounded like rocks. And acorns
Hmm.
can still definitely dent a car. And
Yeah.
either way, I'm shocked nobody stopped in the moment to like pull over and, hey, stop. They just called my
They're like,
principal
there's
and like,
some child that is
yeah, what's
throwing
crazy?
rocks under my Mercedes Benz.
They must have called like every school because they didn't get my name or info. I got on the bus, went to school like an hour into the day. The
No.
principal comes on the announcement, Sam
No.
Heard, come to the
Oh
office.
no.
And they've been
Oh
getting
no.
calls like from people all morning. I was like, oh my
Oh
gosh. Yeah.
no.
Anyway,
A
there you
celebrity
go.
at 10.
But then you hear about these horrifying stories of kids doing that with rocks off
Yeah.
of like overpasses and
Yeah,
killing
yeah.
people instantly. It's like, oh my
Hmm.
God. Oof. Scary.
So okay, so but yeah, since 9/11, we've had a lot to deal with. I mean, I don't know that I can I don't want to, I don't want to get a comparison war between like people from like 1911 who had to deal with the World War I. But there's been a
Spanish
lot going
flu.
on. There's been a
Mm,
lot going on. We've had wars that we've started as the United States. We've had pandemics. We've had ecological disasters.
Katrina. Mm.
We've had natural disasters. We've had man-made disasters. We've got I don't know.
I,
We got
I,
Yellowstone ready to blow any moment. Any
Climate change in
moment.
general is pretty stressful to think about. I will say I'm still quite happy to not have. I think in one way, people are way more knowledgeable now about uh, nukes than maybe when our
Yeah,
parents were growing up. But I'm
sure.
grateful to be spared from that part of time
Yeah,
when
that must have been really,
people
really
didn't
scary.
know what the likelihood of being, struck by a nuclear weapon during the Cold War and actually had to practice drills of like trying to protect
Duck and
yourself from a
cover.
nuclear blast somehow. Like, okay,
Duck and
glad that was
cover.
not a reality for us so far,
Yeah.
at least. But I did think
What?
it was interesting. Just this
Yeah.
past week, I was like, "Yeah, Nathan, I've had a bit of an enlightenment about why building nuclear power plants, as safe as they might be, can't account for war." And somebody,
Right.
like some crazy country, deciding to just attack a nuclear power plant and then use that as a nuclear attack and say
Yeah.
it, kind of indirectly. And then like 3 days later, Russia, like I had the realization when they captured Chernobyl. I was
Yes.
talking to you about it that day,
Mm-hmm.
and then like 3 days
Mm-hmm.
later, Russia's actively shelling a fucking active nuclear power plant, not
Yeah.
Chernobyl,
Yep. And
the
what,
biggest or the second biggest
dude?
in Europe.
The
God,
craziest part about that too is there's some footage. I'm sure you've either seen or heard about it, of inside the control room while the shelling was going on, and over
no, I
the
have not.
louds. Okay, well, basically what's happening is it's just some like some like engineers just like kind of like frantically sort of like running around and like checking doors and things like that. But over
What do we do?
the
What do we do?
the craziest, yeah, because it's just like a bunch of like dudes and like
There's nothing in
you
the
know
book for this. Yeah.
yeah, they're just like okay. But over the loudspeaker is the craziest thing in Ukrainian, or maybe no, it's in Russian, I guess. Somebody is on the loudspeaker saying like to the entire complex, please stop shelling this facility, you're endangering the safety of the entire planet.
Mhm.
Just over and over, like you are dangerously close to endangering
And I
the
have to
earth.
say, aside from the people working in the plant, the next most endangered people are the ones firing that those shells. I mean, they might
Yeah.
as well be like turning and pointing the guns at themselves.
Absolutely.
And firing randomly scattershot and just hope that it's like the same logic. I don't understand. It's so bizarre.
Yeah.
But
I don't know. A lot of what's happening in this war makes no sense at all. I don't understand why the Russian Air Force has not completely dominated the skies. Still, they are not really able to be effective, which I think is part of the reason why they haven't made so many gains, is because they do not have adequate air cover, which is cool.
it seems like a lot of their strength in military was a facade, or uh, sort of stuck in time from a period when things were maintained well and newer in terms of equipment, and wasn't maintained and didn't keep up with modernization. Right. And I don't know what else, but it seems, I don't know. I'm also a little concerned that we're being subjected to propaganda from the West side, of like, look how pathetic Russia is, because I could see Russia's doing the exact same thing of like, we're dominating, like, look how stupid Ukrainians are. Like, I do want, like, everything I see, it's like, wow, Russia is really they're not progressing quickly.
Right.
But
not to mention this,
maybe that's now, to keep morale high there.
That's true. But, and something to understand also is that this would not be the first time, like if Russia does, start like actually making significant gains and like takes over the country or whatever, it would not be the first time that the Russian military has gone off to a abysmal start at the beginning of a campaign and then like kind of like got their act together. And that same thing happened in World War I and World War II, where they were getting clobbered for years, like basically like the first start of those wars, and then kind of like figured out what to do after that. So,
but I feel like a lot of that,
I don't know,
is sheer men,
numbers.
They just keep like throwing them at the problem until, I mean, you look at did you ever see that viral YouTube video? Still blows my mind, of the they like account each little stick figure is like 100 people or something, which is already crazy. Like, one little stick figure represents 100 people, and then they tally up the various countries' deaths throughout World War II. Did you ever see it? It's like a black background, and each country has a color.
Okay.
Russia is a red color with a little stick figure.
Yeah.
And it's like, here are the U.S. losses, Germany, France, all that. And then it gets to Russia, and it just starts to fill the screen. And then the screen starts scrolling.
Oh my God.
And it's scrolling and it's scrolling and it's scrolling and it's scrolling. And it's like 30 million people worth of little stick figures. Awful. Which was like 100x anybody else, even close. I think Germany would have been the next most. It's insane how many people they lost to win and maintain their country from Germany. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Pretty unbelievable.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. I'm just really hoping that something drastic happens to stop this whole thing.
I have a couple of photographers that are friends of mine, not direct, but through social media. I don't know them personally super well, but I have talked to them for years, about photography, and they live in Russia, and they're pretty freaking terrified and like desperate to leave. It's tough though. If you wanted to leave the country as a Russian citizen, you have to physically get across the border and then get to a facility. I guess it would be like a diplomatic facility somewhere in another country. The problem is most countries won't let you in because of COVID to begin with. This is just one of many, many problems for Russian citizens to try and escape or do anything to push back. They can't leave because the Sputnik vaccine, though it is actually good, it's not WHO approved. So they're sort of locked in, and Russia doesn't let American, Pfizer and European vaccines, AstraZeneca, that they don't really let them into the country in any big numbers for people to get. So just to like legally get across in any way, if you could afford it or what have you, you can't.
You might not be able to because you got the wrong vaccine.
That's it. That's just problem one.
Not to mention
my friend was like trying to buy an R6 soon, and he was like, "Oh yeah, I literally woke up on Monday and it's $5,000 now." like the
Yeah.
equivalent of $5,000 for them, because they're the value against the dollar and everything else. They're rubles or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Ruble. I don't know if it's with a
Ruble.
B or a P.
B.
Completely crashed, obviously. Like it's bad, real bad for their
Yeah.
economy. So,
Dude. Yeah. It's wild.
it's also really frustrating to see so many people pivot on a dime from being so, seemingly well versed and knowledgeable about COVID, and like COVID is the topic of the day and it's all
Mm-hmm.
political COVID
Yep.
rhetoric. God, yeah, everyone's sick of it. And then these exact same people now are like experts in Ukrainian, Russian foreign affairs, and like, just tossing blame. It's also fascinating to see so many, what I would say now, obvious Russian sort of agents that have infiltrated American politics, like try and
Sure.
do the mental gymnastics to like make it Biden's fault or something. It's
Yeah,
like,
that to
it's
me is
insanity.
like
Anyway, I can't handle it. I'm getting
it's yeah.
so angry. But yeah, exactly. People who were previously like thought of themselves as experts on whatever political related issue to COVID are now
Mm-hmm.
perfectly capable of commentating on a war that nobody thought was going to happen. It's crazy.
Yeah. The internet has created a millions, maybe billions of armchair experts that are
Yeah,
getting a lot of their opinions from little tiny text boxes of funny words and funny sentences that may or may not have anything to do with reality. Um, and I don't know if that's a bad thing in and of itself, but it sure seems like people are just kind of like doing the minimum to say whatever, spout whatever their worldview is, and then be
yeah.
out when the next thing happens.
So I'm also sort of grateful that this, a war, which is pretty much worst case scenario, is occurring now instead of another 5 or 10 years from now,
Mm-hmm.
simply because things like deepfakes can still be
Oh yeah.
fairly easily and quickly identified as such. But
Mm-hmm.
it's still impressive how many, like, literally video game renders looked real enough that people kind of like
Yes.
pixelated it, made it look like it was handheld footage, and said like, "Oh, look at this fighter being shot down," and people were like,
Yeah.
"Actually, this is video. This is from a video game."
It's from
It's kind of crazy.
simulator.
But imagine another 5 or 10 years from now when it's completely indistinguishable from an actual film, and how tough it would be to know the truth and push back against that. It's kind of crazy, and I'm
Yeah.
glad, in a sense, that we're still limited in terms of what the technology is able to do. But pretty scary to think if there is another war sometime, or if this carries on for long enough, how they will create just completely fake footage that
Yeah,
everybody
it's gonna
believes is
be
real.
right. I think that's an interesting facet of the war, is that like, or war in general, I guess, is that there's always been propaganda, but I feel like, yeah, you're right. Within the next 5 years, 10 years, there's going to be the ability to completely manufacture um, almost any type of scenario or perspective that you want, and spout it off as reality. Um,
And there's always been propaganda, but actual media content from boots
right.
on the ground. I mean, Vietnam, to my knowledge, was one of the first to really have photos, and
Yes, to
and
have
there were, I
like,
mean,
well, in real
countless
time. Yeah.
award-winning, in
Hmm.
basically real time. Right? Yeah. Sorry, in real time, from
Hmm.
reporters that were credited and generally thought to be trustworthy, and there were countless photos that, when people saw the picture, didn't matter what the article said.
Right.
That's why there was so much controversy and pushback and protest, one or the many reasons,
Interesting.
about Vietnam, because of those powerful, powerful photos.
Yeah.
Now, I got to say, I'm also quite concerned that I'm not on TikTok, but I'm very concerned that a communist controlled and owned China
Hmm.
media platform
Hmm.
is crafting, that using their algorithms, the narrative of what they want everybody on TikTok to see.
Yes.
And the Chinese version of TikTok is completely different than the rest of the world's version of TikTok.
Hmm.
It's insane. Now, I don't know how it actually relates to war, but one example that I find very interesting is Chinese kids that are on it past a certain age, what have you. I don't know how they localize it, but essentially kids in China, first of all gaming and social media interaction, especially TikTok, stops. It completely shuts off past a certain time. So they can't be on it 24/7. And
Mm.
the algorithm slants heavily toward really positive, uplifting, constructive, like educational TikToks, like self things you would generally think are actually really what you would want in society, like people being successful and trying things that are working really hard in their studies and like getting good grades. Like
Hmm.
those types of TikToks are forced to go viral because China is forcing, they're trying to, I don't know if it's going to work, but they are trying to force the minds of their kids to have a healthier perspective and a really
Interesting.
positive opinion of China in general as a
Right. Of
country, as
course.
a society. It's all positive
Right.
versus, you know, what you see in the US or in Western
Yeah.
TikToks. It's
This
like mind garbage. Yeah, it's rotting of the mind through video. It's insanely bad. I think the
rotting of the
fact,
mind.
yeah, it feels like, okay, this must be, it's good to have the info and see perhaps what feels like uncurated behind the scenes footage of a war occurring between Russia and Ukraine, but this is all completely controlled by China. This is insane to me. And
Yeah.
I think it absolutely, I think the internet in general, until the technology exists to somehow authenticate who is watching what on the internet, and I have no idea how that's ever going to be possible. I
Right.
think, I think it should be completely banned. I think social media in general should be heavily restricted. I think
Yeah.
something like porn should also be insanely heavily regulated
Yeah.
until there is such a way for technology to authenticate that this is actually an adult. This is an adult making the decision to watch it. Right now, there's no way to know.
There's
Like
no way to know.
everyone knows that 13 to 18-year-old like check mark. Are you over 13? Yeah, but they're 9 years old on TikTok. That's
Right.
insane to me, and it should stop until that is heavily regulated or the technology exists to authenticate how old somebody is.
That's true. But the
Does
other
that make
thing about
sense?
the
Am I
internet,
being too
yes,
extreme in
definitely.
this opinion?
No, 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 not at all. I think that that's actually really interesting. And a funny example of that actually is so I I feel like sort of relatedly that like social media is like a completely new facet of the internet. Back when the internet was just first starting, it was a lot of these little secluded little communities, and
Like
there
message
were, of
boards.
course, there were message boards, there were chat rooms, there were things like that. But there were also these little communities that came together from completely independent websites. There weren't like, it wasn't like somebody big controlling like the top like 20 websites
Yeah.
everywhere. Whereas now the internet is used for, like with Google, Facebook, and Amazon Web Services powers everything. And with like TikTok, well, with Instagram, which is owned by Facebook, the internet is basically owned by a few companies. That's at this point. But one
Yep.
thing that I found really fun was the other night, Abby was like looking up some stuff online, and she found this like Dracula type count guy with like suit on and like the face makeup talking about scary movies. It was his little show, this completely ridiculous independent little show where he was like, I am introducing like the scariest movie of 2022. Then he had his like niece come on, and like he was gonna like hang out with his niece for like a week, and like, but then he introduced the movie that everyone was gonna watch. Very Mystery Science Theater ish in many ways, but it got me thinking like back to, I don't know, the old days of the internet where like there were these just weird websites that people knew about, like Homestar Runner or like or like what was it?
Homestar Runner. Yeah.
Yeah, or like
That's great.
what's the one, Rusty Spoon, Salad Fingers. A lot of cool little weird websites that I just I love that, like knowing about certain little weird websites out there, and it's so few and far between now because everything sort of funnels toward, like you could say like that person at this point, if you weren't doing his own show, would easily just be funneled into Instagram and YouTube and become a Twitch streamer, and it's easy to do that, and it may even be lucrative to do that, but then you're part of the system too. So I don't know. Like I just, when I saw this video and I saw this guy making these little funny videos, I just remembered a time when the internet was a place where you could sort of just stumble upon cool things that weren't all just TikToks. And
agreed. I think that's still out there. I
it's
think
still
those
out there,
still exist.
clearly,
But you're right. A lot of it is scooped up into, would have otherwise been an amazing blog to follow is just an Instagram account now.
Sure.
And would have been, a fantastic series of like homemade films. I remember when we were in college, one went viral of a director debut making a short film of Batman, and it was like super dark. It was like Dark Knight, 10 years before Nolan, or like 5 years before Christopher Nolan made Dark Knight. I don't know if you ever saw it, but the actor that played Joker, it was like amazing. And this video just went viral through
really familiar
torrents, like the decentralized, mostly decentralized technology of BitTorrents and streaming through that.
That's awesome.
But I do think there is some ability for, not to get too much into this side of current internet stuff, but I do think certain crypto technologies will provide a newer way to fight, to bring it back to what we were talking about earlier, fight against deepfakes, because certain blockchains, the blockchain in general, I don't know about Bitcoin. I hate thinking about it as an exchange or a store of value or a way to exchange money. I think that's ridiculous. At its core, crypto in the blockchain technology in general can have the digital equivalent of having a coin in your pocket. You know who it belongs to, you know where it is secure. And so I think it can provide a way to solve the issue of deepfakes from a reputable news organization or a person, like being able to drill down to the original source of a piece of media content through the blockchain is totally possible. And I think that could work. I also feel like technology technically is at this stage. Go ahead.
Well, what I was about to say is that not technically NFTs?
It is. Yeah, it's an NFT. It is.
Basically, that's NFTs. It's a way of, but you're saying instead of having something where it's a piece of creative content that is created and then assigned a number, you could take anything and assign it a blockchain value. And that
but
could
NFTs
be,
are mostly like a marketing
as its
thing.
authentication.
The idea of an NFT is just, as far as I understand it, it's just an attached like web address mapped to a cryptocurrency address, which is something that's kind of always existed since crypto. I mean, maybe not Bitcoin, but other blockchains like ETH, Ethereum, all of that, like they have like these contracts that are assigned to the node on the blockchain. And those contracts they're literally like contracts, like agreements, like embedded text. They can be web links, whatever. So NFTs, I think, are just like the modern day marketing of something that actually has already existed the whole time. But these NFT branded marketplaces were made like actual websites to sell and buy these attached digital goods in a way that didn't exist. People get way too caught up though in the financial like bubble of crypto that I think is so far really hurting the potential of the technology to be widely adopted in a way that's actually functional to be able to securely transfer things and not have it be about like some scammy, crime riddled like pyramid scheme of confusion. But at the same time, I was going to say the I think right now like they're Apple using Face ID or any other type of biometric type of authentication could somehow create, I think, a very secure mainstream option for, again, authenticating that somebody trying to access something on an Apple device is an adult when they need to be. And I think they could completely roll
Could
something out that implements that into the entire internet that's accessed through Safari or any
could
app in
I
the App Store.
have
It's kind of crazy.
could I have a blockchain address? Could Nathan Mitchell be an NFT? Could I assign myself an Ethereum number and be bought and sold, or could I, or be not
I
bought and
mean,
sold, but
your name, it would have to
authenticated?
be like a thing. Yeah, I think you probably could. You
I could
could
be
have
authenticated.
something. Yeah, perhaps.
Why can't I
You
be an
can also
NFT?
create your own cryptocurrency on something like the Ethereum network.
Sure.
I don't know if you remember back in like 2017, I made a currency. It's super easy
Yeah,
to
I
do,
remember. Yeah.
piggybacking off of certain ones. I made like 50,000 coins of, I can't remember what it was, what I
Did they
called
ever
it.
go anywhere? Are they out there
I
somewhere?
have not, yeah, watch. Somebody's like bought and sold them into like billions of dollars and I have no clue. I have them all stored in my, I mostly don't hold any crypto anymore, but I do have anything I did hold in my Meta wallet and my Ledger, Nano
Mhm.
Ledger wallet. So I should check. But
That's
it's an
funny.
interesting time to see a lot of these technologies actually exist in a way that could solve a lot of problems. It's just, it's easy to say something like we are right here, like, here's the idea, this is probably what needs to change. And actually the steps to implement it and do it
Yeah, I mean,
are
as with
insane. And the
anything.
implications, like if Apple today was like, you know what, guys, we're going to roll out any browser that's used on iOS, Safari or otherwise, anything that's downloadable through the App Store, which they control entirely. We have a whole list of websites, and if you try and access TikTok or some media propaganda or porn or whatever, and you're supposed to be over a certain age, you have to be biometrically authenticated before getting access to that web address.
Yeah, they could
That would
easily
be
do that.
insane, but it's technically possible
Yeah,
now.
of course.
And I think it should happen personally. I'm of the opinion that should happen. This whole 30 years, our entire existence of being able to access whatever we want, it's
Hmm.
fine now that you and I are adults, but the fact that there are 13-year-olds
Yeah,
and 10-year-olds like accessing videos of people like actively at war in another country curated through an algorithm that's owned by and controlled by Chinese communists is insane to me.
it's
It's
crazy to.
insane.
That is really interesting when you put it like that. That it's yeah. They're
If
what? How can
imagine
we stop this?
imagine in the 60s and 70s through the Vietnam War, if there was a huge popular TV show / magazine that was owned by China and North Vietnam, accessible to everybody, especially children in the US at that time, it would be banned in a freaking heartbeat. It would
Pokemon?
not exist. What?
Wait, is that Japanese? Continue. Sorry.
It's the point. I mean, it never existed. It wasn't a problem because it was never going to be successful financially. No, I wouldn't be shocked if the vast majority of people that are on certain social media platforms don't actually, I mean, people still don't realize that Instagram is owned by Facebook. It's like, and that's just a basic. And now Facebook has muddied the waters by changing their name to Meta. And
Right.
I continue to think Facebook is going to just completely plummet their stock value and ability to be
Facebook is
a
just
platform.
sad. It's just
Yeah, it
sad at
is.
this
It
point.
really is.
It's really sad. Every time I go on there, I'm just like, and
Okay, so bring it back to photography, though. Can I just
yeah,
point out that I never let my Facebook page completely die. I always
yeah,
cross
me neither.
posted, mostly an automated cross post of what I put on
Yeah,
Instagram would go to my business
same.
page. But I would also legitimately interact and engage with people on my business page
Sure.
and continue to do that even through almost zero organic reach. And this year, my reach is spiking a lot. And I don't know if I'm
Hmm.
just doing particularly good work, but I'm feeling that Facebook is opening the throttle. Maybe I mentioned this in another
Yeah, you did
podcast
mention this before.
as something that might make sense that they would do if their ability to generate revenue and their stock market, the stock price value plummeted, which is both of those things have happened now.
Yes.
They
Yes.
can just open the throttle to organic reach, and everybody who's like a content creator, if they start to see that organic reach has returned to Facebook, the actual website, not Instagram, Facebook is the website, they'll start posting there again, and they'll
Sure.
start prioritizing that as a place to put their stuff. And I mean, the
Yeah, I
post that
mean,
I that I made the other
Yeah.
day. Yeah, it was a particularly strong set of images, but it got 1,000 likes on my Facebook
Whoa.
business page, which is like,
Yeah.
whoa, that hasn't happened
That's
in
a
a long
lot.
time.
Yeah.
That's and it only got 1,900 likes on Instagram. So it got half of
Hmm.
what I get on
That
Instagram
is interesting.
versus on average, basically the last 5 years, I would get maybe like 100 likes. Um,
Hmm.
it's always tough to know because nobody, as a creator, if it's content like a photo, you literally don't know if it's just maybe the photo wasn't as good. Maybe it's not as interesting or as strong an image, and that's why your reach didn't do well.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's the math. Maybe it's an adjustment in the algorithm. Like you just don't know. So you can only play by averages. And I'm just putting this out there. On average, I have seen a definite tilt upward in my organic reach on Facebook. So
Well, and this just brings it back to the fact that having one giant company own everyone's likes is dangerous.
I will
It's
say
just
I am
absurd.
also, it gives me some hope. And I like how quickly TikTok sort of exploded. Obviously, that was partially fueled by the pandemic, but it was sort of under the radar. It actually had a previous name. It's called like Musically or Musicality or something. They
Hmm.
rebranded and relaunched with a totally different strategy and spent a ton of money on advertising themselves on platforms like the Apple App Store and Facebook. Like TikTok spent so much to launch, and that mainstream adoption happened very, very quickly. So why I think that's good is something else could come along in the next 2 or 3
Sure.
years that
Sure.
isn't, owned by a Chinese or I have nothing against Chinese people. It's the CCP, the communist
Yeah.
government there. American made could quickly come out and take the mantle from Facebook, Instagram, maybe even Google,
Mhm.
and it happened very fast, which I like. I
Yeah.
like that that's possible,
Yeah.
assuming they don't get
It's
acquired by
right.
looking at the dollar signs from the already established players, which
Right.
could happen.
Which
But
would probably happen.
you would think, I mean, Facebook seems like they would have bought TikTok, but they didn't.
Mm.
They thought they could iterate like they did with Snapchat
Maybe. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
not bother to buy them and just create the feature as a part of Instagram, just like they're doing with Reels,
Hmm.
and be done and not have to buy them. But clearly that
Yeah.
hasn't worked. Reels are fine, but it hasn't
No, it
knocked
hasn't killed
TikTok
TikTok.
down
Yeah.
in any way, shape, or form. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. These be the crazy times. And it's yeah, I don't know. I just feels like what's the next thing? What's the next thing? Okay, we got the pandemic covered. We got the recession covered. We've
Oh, can I
got
just say,
the war
culturally,
covered.
I would have thought Spain would be the least likely to adhere to like mask wearing and
Hmm.
it's like general sensibilities, and they're really on it here. People
Good.
are wearing masks excessively, like outdoors, which I'm like, I don't, you really don't need to, but they are
Hmm.
like they. It's
That's
really quite
great.
funny to me, in a strange way, not haha. That
Sure.
Spain culturally very like up in your face, close. Like, of course, you're
Yeah.
not going to wear a mask. Very good about it here. So anyway, but
So
uh,
yeah.
good.
Well, I was just going to change gears completely,
Sure.
and just ask if you've seen the Batman yet.
No, what are you talking about?
The movie Batman.
There's a new Batman.
What?
I have no idea.
You're hearing it here first, folks. That Sam doesn't even know that there's a new Batman movie that is out.
No
The one
idea. How,
with Robert Pattinson, Zoe Kravitz,
I
Matt
guess I
Reeves.
heard a
This isn't
rumor that he
ringing
was going
any
to be
bells.
Batman, but I had absolutely no idea. Who
Ah,
directed it?
Matt Reeves.
I
Oh
don't know
my
who that
god.
is.
Okay, anyway, I'm not going to say anything about it other than
Oh,
I loved it.
it looks
And
cool.
I
Oh, you did? Oh, it's 3 hours long.
3 hours long, and it's every minute of it is awesome.
I do. I'm a big
It
Robert Pattinson fan. So, ooh, Colin
he's
Farrell.
so good, dude. Anyway, I'm not
I
going to
did
say
see a
anything
video of
else.
Colin Farrell talking about his makeup as the Penguin, and I was like, "What movie?" I was thinking he was
He's
Penguin in the '90s, and I
unrecognizable.
missed it. So he's in this film. I had no idea.
Yes, he's
Okay, I'll
great
check it
in
out.
it. I don't even like Colin Farrell that much, and I loved him in this. Just you need to see it, and everyone out here needs to see it. It's really good. It's really
I'll
good.
cue it up. I'm so
All right.
excited. Is it better than Chris Nolan's?
It's apples and oranges. It's a different type of movie. It's not really an action movie. Quite the same way. It's apples and oranges, and I'm not going to say if one or the other is better. But the fact that I even am saying that should tell you that the Batman's really good, because I'm not
We don't
going to
have
be
another
like,
Matrix situation going on here, right? In any
no,
way.
I don't think so.
Okay, thank God.
No. Um,
I still can't
but
believe how bad it was.
yeah, I still haven't seen it a second time. Unfortunately, I really want to. My priority now is seeing Batman and again in theaters. I saw it at the Senator down the street, dude. Okay,
Break.
let me just
Okay.
1 second
Yeah.
rant.
Yep. Go. Rant away.
Went to the Senator for what was essentially opening night for Batman, and it was
People that don't know,
packed.
the Senator's like a old school Hollywood theater,
Yeah.
like beautiful. Like the main room has like the beautiful velvet curtains, and it's got like really
Mm-hmm.
ornate exterior to the building. It's where a lot of movies have premiered.
It's a large
Over
theater,
the years.
actually.
Yeah.
It is. It's got a lot of seating for an older theater. But yeah, Empire Strikes Back. They've got an Empire Strikes Back plaque on the like they do the whole Hollywood thing of the concrete embossment or whatever
Yep.
for movies,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
they have the people that come and sign the concrete. So it's really cool to see that when you're walking up to see things like I think RoboCop or something is out there. So I go into the Senator, and it was like a day or two after the mask mandate was like lifted or whatever. I don't know. 10% of the people, maybe 20% of the people in there were wearing masks, and everybody else was unmasked, just walking right in. Is freaking
Okay.
me out. I was double masked, and I'm like sitting there. And first of all, this dude like comes in 5 minutes after the movie starts and like walks in, like well after the opening scene had finished, and he comes in and he like leans over to me unmasked and goes like, oh, "What did I miss?" And I'm just like, "Oh God!" I was like, "Get the fuck away from me!"
I can
I
smell
was
your
like,
cigarettes through my
I
double
literally could
masks.
smell
Or
the alcohol. Yes,
oh
and
shit, yeah.
And I was like,
Ugh.
and I like sort of told him what the opening scene was. I'm like, ugh. And then the person next to me was like on his phone, like got on his phone like an hour in and was like texting someone. And I'm like, okay. And I'm like, I'm not going to say anything right now, but like if this goes on, it was like a couple of minutes and he like put it away. And I was like, fine. And then a person 2 rows behind me starts coughing, 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 coughing. And I'm like, of course, I don't think that you have COVID, but at the same time, like, stop coughing. Like, she was coughing for like literally like over a minute. Just, and the
Oh
only
gosh.
person in the whole place that was coughing. And I'm sitting there being like, this is insane. I was like, why am I even here right now? I'm like, this movie is awesome, but like, what if I catch COVID here and then I give it to my baby and
Oh,
like,
what a lame way to catch COVID.
oh,
Yeah.
it would be so stupid. And then the dude takes his phone out again, and I'm sitting there and I'm like, what is happening here? So finally, like
Oh
he had it
no.
out for like not even 10 seconds. And I tapped him on the shoulder and I was like, hey, can you put your phone away, dude? And he was like, sure. And I was like, thank you. And he didn't pull it out again. And I was like, God. And then this person starts coughing again 20 minutes later, and I'm like, oh my God. And
Yeah,
that
the
was
lack of self awareness is crazy, and it always makes me wonder about other things in life, other interactions that those people go through
yeah.
that are equally ridiculous, and
Yeah.
or things that I do that I think are totally fine,
Yeah.
but I just don't understand how somebody in a movie theater could ever think it's okay to have their phone at max brightness, making no effort to shield it or not disturb others.
Hmm.
But the coughing thing, especially now, it's like anytime there's a cough, you should be doing whatever you can to stifle that shit or get the fuck out. Like, get
So,
away from me. But people around here are like coughing
dude,
on the streets too. Like I was walking with a photographer in Madrid, and some lady like turned and coughed right in their face. It's like, oh my God. Who is not self-aware enough to know that that
so
should not be
one of
happening?
my
Anyway.
one of my favorite Vineet stories, and if one of my best friends is Vineet, and I've talked about him on the podcast here and there, but he's a designer in Baltimore. Anyway, one of my favorite stories of Vineet was when he was living in Austin. Him and his friend Adam were at the movies, and Adam they were at the movies at, I think, like Alamo Drafthouse or something. It was a big movie that they were watching, and it was there's a very dark theater. This person like 4 rows in front of them like pulled out their phone. Both of them
You
are
don't do
like
that at Alamo
super.
Draft House.
No, you
Yeah.
can't. Both Vineet and Adam, as I think me and you are too, Sam, was like really into movies, and I'm like, I can't. They were like, I can't deal with this guy, and he kept pulling out his phone. He pulled it out like once or maybe two more times, and then he silently just got up, walked all the way down towards him, got right next to him, and said very loudly, "Hi, could you please put your fucking phone away?" And then like and walked back to his seat and sat down, and the dude just like did not have his phone out again. And I just
Good.
thought that was the best
Yeah.
thing I've ever heard in my life.
I mean, you're doing
Yeah.
everybody else a favor too. Like, it's annoying
Yeah.
everyone. It's crazy.
I can't.
Lack of self-awareness.
But
All right. Last
anyway.
thing to follow up on. We got some breaking news here because everybody listens to this podcast for news.
Mm-hmm.
Russia claims it will stop the war immediately if Ukraine agrees to cease military action. Okay. Change constitution to enshrine neutrality. Recognize Crimea as a Russian territory and recognize the Russian-controlled areas of Donetsk and Luhansk as independent states. So seems like Russia is trying to keep what they've captured. Yeah, that doesn't seem like that's going to solve anything. But it's interesting that Russia is signaling giving up to some degree.
Oh, no, they're giving them an impossible ultimatum. They're just going to try to draw out the war. That sounds like nothing to me. That's like, okay, do everything we want and then we'll stop. They're not going to do that. They own Crimea and they own all this stuff. Yeah, that's not going to happen.
Well, cool. I guess we should stop there. We're almost at an hour.
Yep. Well, we didn't get to our main topic today, but that's okay.
Which was
talking about clients that are upset with a different photographer over their photos.
Okay, next episode. We'll do that soon.
We'll do that.
An email, very emotional email I got from a client who was unhappy with their photos. I was not their photographer, and we'll leave it at that. We'll touch base next episode. Totally forgot we were going to talk about that. So
it's nice catching up. There's lots of other stuff to talk about. So, all right. Well, talk to you later.